Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to B-Sides Now. First episode, inauguration episode.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, you could call it that.
You could. We also filmed this episode as we were starting to piece this together all the way back in October. We spoke to Singh of Hate 56. Most, if not all of you watching this, should be familiar, and if you're not, well, this is a good one for you. We talk. I think what we brought this up was we wanted to talk to Sonny about his work in moving from the live setting into sort of the online setting of live streaming due to the pandemic or some COVID-19, something of that nature, right? Yeah, so it's really weird year. Anyway, Sonny was, of course, part of the Code Orange record release stream that happened, which for all intents and purposes, was kind of the kickoff to so many that we saw or didn't see on the web, since no one could, tour on any sort of new record or old record or reunion or whatever you want to call it. Pretty good conversation.
Yeah, we talked to Sunny a lot about, we got the ins and outs of how that Code Orange stream, that very first one, how that went down from beginning to end. So that was cool as just like a marketing brain to sort of figure out how they put something so dope together. But we also just talked about, what it's like going from, he's used to capturing energy in a live setting, but now he has to do it through a screen. And how do you convey that? And speaking as someone, I've worked with him now since the pandemic started, and I've seen what he's able to do and how he captures the energy. But it's a conversation that I think a lot of artists and people working behind the scenes will get a lot out of.
So without further ado, here's our interview with Singh of Hate 56 to kick this baby off.
Essentially, I've been furloughed from Spaceland Live Nation since May. We have seen what will eventually be a bloodbath in this business due to COVID and mishandling of everything that's going on in our country. That'll trickle down to live music and artistry and all that kind of stuff. So Jamie and I just we both believe in creative outlets. We both believe in doing things big for communities, music communities, no matter what that is, and not exactly following the way that we're supposed to do things. And obviously, more so on my part is the live music aspect of all this. So Jamie and I kind of agreed, like, we wanted to kick off the series with someone that we could talk to about live streaming, about live music, and from both of our mouths, you were the first person to come up about this. And obviously, again, what kind of kicked that off is really the Code Orange live stream. If you look at it, even pre-Ben Gibbard sitting in his attic, kind of kicked everything off in that. And now we're even seeing on like the Live Nation levels and the just the late night levels, this sort of live streaming thing, but we feel like there's more to it than that. And we also kind of wanted to get into your background and your branding and that sort of nature. So we want this to be a very comfortable conversation, and we want this to be a very real conversation. Not pretty much no holds barred. Tell us how you feel. We'll tell you how we feel. And we hope that, maybe we can make some sense of everything that's going on going into God only knows what's going to happen in November. What will be the implications and the repercussions of that moving forward for, you, for me, for anyone in live music. Obviously, Jamie works in marketing and PR, and that's tied to bands going out on the road and, for lack of a better bastardized phrase, selling their music or selling their product.
Fun story. I was literally, and it's probably a week that, Sonny, that you were also probably doing some frantic planning, but I was literally the week lockdown started in March, I was in labor in the hospital giving birth to my son when,
oh my God.
I'm not even kidding, I'm sitting with my phone in this bed, scrolling after email of every single one of my clients dropping their tours and canceling tours. It was happening while I was there, and I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like two extremes of emotion that you're probably dealing with. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it was
Wow.
wild. But yeah, it was just like this. It was that week, and then I feel like, we came back, we got home, and that first week home with the baby, I remember, I think that was the Friday or the Saturday or whatever night it was that the Code Orange stream happened. And for me, I was, I was online, I paid attention to that, and I was really impressed by it. But I was really impressed like a week later, 2 weeks later, when that content was still alive out there. It was still engaging with people left and right, and I was still hearing about it long after it happened. And I had worked a couple of records that came out right before, the week before I gave birth. Actually, I worked a few releases, and it was like an interesting time, because it was like everybody, I think marketing wise, was trying to figure out what the fuck to do. And you lost your touring, and a band, I worked a record that came out the week prior, like I said, and they had their whole everything for the next 6 months were built around touring and shows and festivals and all these amazing things that their people had kind of figured out for them. And then all of a sudden it was just off the table, all of it. And I feel like that first Code Orange stream happened at a time where people were still trying to figure their shit out. But if we wanted to start there, I would love to, as just a PR and marketing person, I'm so impressed by it and how it's developed into so much more, even just for y'all together, and how really just how did it start and how did it come together? Me and Adam were wondering sort of were you just planning to film a regular record release show, or was it, where was the planning? If you want to walk us through that, that would be sick.
Yeah, so obviously I've been filming hardcore bands and just shows in general for 12 years now. And so the plan was I was going to actually record the show like a normal record release event. And I was going to have multiple cameras there, and we were going to make it a big thing. Just because, I had filmed their previous record release shows. So it was going to be sort of in that vein. And obviously that week is when the COVID stuff started getting more and more serious in terms of the lockdown. And we were having conversations, Jamie from Code Orange and Reba were hitting me up being like, hey, the show's iffy. We don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know if the city's going to allow it. And then the conversation shifted to, hey, maybe we're just going to have the bands play to an empty venue, and you can just film it and we'll do something with it. And then about 48 hours before the show, it was agreed that, hey, it's just going to be us, Code Orange, playing, and it's going to be live streamed. We're not going to record it and then post it later. We're just going to do it live and blast it out on Twitch. So I had never done a live stream before. People have always asked me to live stream various fests that I film or various big events that I film. And my perspective has always been, why should I spend, energy, resources, and time into producing a live stream when I can take that time and energy and resources into making the video that I'm going to record for the site, make that better by renting better cameras or whatever it is. I always felt like the videos that I produce are, I'm capturing moments in time that I want to be preserved for decades, in the future. And so I always felt that it was wiser to just focus on making that final product better and not to divert resources into a live stream that people will just watch on their phone at the end of the day. So I always kept that at a distance, but I think that obviously when Code was basically hey, we need to do this live, I was like, all right, my feelings about live streams are out the window. Let's just try to do it and see what happens. So we essentially just put it together within 48 hours, and that in itself was a big task.
Yeah, shit.
It was a huge task, and it ended up, and we had a lot of technical things to sort out. We spent the entire day doing tests and making sure things were running. And even then, even if the rehearsal looks great, there's always the possibility of something going wrong, losing signal or the computer restarting or losing power. There's so many things that can go wrong, and luckily nothing did go wrong. And we had something at least 13,000 people tuned in, and it was amazing. And people were freaking out about it in the chat. We were definitely not the first people to do a live stream. People have been live streaming shows for a while now, but I want to say probably the first one within the constraints of the pandemic. And I think that's what got a lot of people being like, yeah, I need to check this out. And or people like were sharing it because they weren't expecting to see that. Because again, that was the beginning of things getting shut down. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. People were like, are we ever going to have shows again? What do events even look like in this time? And I think that live stream event really showed people that, you know, we can still have live music in a way. Because for me, one of the reasons why I document live music is because I feel like I had a post about it last night. I said live music is something that breaks down barriers and unifies people. Like when you're in a room with other people who are screaming the same lyrics or just enjoying the same band that brought you there to that same room, there's power in that. And even if you don't agree politically or whatever, the fact that you were all in that room sharing that moment speaks volumes.
Mhm.
You are all in that moment together. You're sharing that moment together, and that literally is powerful. So for me, doing these live streams is trying to replicate that. Like I did one last night with the Menzingers,
Yeah.
and like people on Twitter were like, "This is the best thing that's happened all year. I love this band." And people were sharing memories of what the first time they heard the Menzingers. There was a couple who posted a picture on Twitter. They were like, you know, we're on our honeymoon, we're isolated on a beach, and the moon was over them. They were alone on a beach, and they were like, the song that we danced to was this Menzinger song, and we're watching this live stream. So for me, it's cool because I never expected a live stream to capture that, but it's still bringing people together in a virtual sense.
Mhm.
And obviously, like nothing is ever going to be or replicate being at the show physically, but we don't have that option right now. So I'm really excited with how live streams are really pushing the boundaries and still at some level unifying people and getting people excited about hearing music live. Because like, yeah, I love listening to music, like a record on you know, listening to an album on a record or whatever, but nothing for me captures hearing a band live. That's what really gets me going. And I feel like music is designed to be played live and heard communally in a room or in a setting with other people. So I think the live shows are really pushing those boundaries about how can bands connect with audiences in this new format. And like, I'll be honest, a lot of live streams now are pre-recorded days in advance and they're fine-tuned, and then they sort of like they premiere it live.
Yeah.
And I've done that with certain things, and I make it known when I'm like premiering a thing that's recorded days in advance. But that first Code Orange one and that second one that we just did, those were live, and like we were like, all right, if something goes wrong, we're gonna have to deal with it like live on the stream. But I do take pride in like the streams that I do that are 100% live. That like anything can go wrong.
Yeah.
The heat of the moment. I have the band is like reading the chat. You know, the chat is on the screen. They can like, you know, answer questions during the chat. So again, it's just it's a newer way that bands are at least able to engage with an audience and try to reach a new audience. And the other part of it is like one of the reasons Code wanted to do it was they had this brand new record and they had a whole US tour planned. All of it was canceled. And so for them, they had no other option. They literally had to do this live stream to promote that record. Otherwise, like, no one would hear it. And so lately, like, I'm trying to, you know, I mean, I'm willing to work with any band, but I have a soft spot for bands who have new music and they can't tour around it and they really need to play it in front of an audience in order for them to, like, you know, remain a band or remain relevant.
Keep developing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy that it happened in 48 hours. You must have been
I was stressed and like
yeah.
I love a good challenge. And I was talking to Jamie about this the other day, and he was like, dude, the reason you're my go-to guy when we're trying to work on something that requires like pushing the boundaries. Because I think I really do think that's where I thrive. Like I really like testing my limits and seeing if I can like not only do it but exceed it. And I feel like being under that pressure is what gets me to like step out of my boundaries. Because again, like I said, I was really against the idea of live streams, just like at a fundamental level, like a philosophical level, and also just feeling like, oh, I've never done it, I don't think I can do it. But being put in that like pressure situation really made me like get out of my comfort zone and just do it. And so that's what really excites me. And we're working on we have some other stuff in the pipeline, and that's again going to, you know, push me to the limits. And so I'm super excited about just everything that's going on right now. Like as awful as it is not having shows, the silver lining, if there is for me, it's just like trying to like push myself and like at least, you know, a lot of people are doing live streams now, and at least do what I can to raise the bar or show people what's possible in terms of like production value in terms of a band doing a live stream.
I think that's the question I have is, you know, if you look at something like Hate 56 or what the stuff that Chris Avis did, there's a real culture behind it. It's not just filming a live band, and I can understand your hesitation for doing a live stream where there aren't bodies in a room. You know, like what would Sound and Fury be without, you know, too many people on stage, or, you know, getting every stage dive or things of like that. You know, for when you talk about pushing production, I guess it's kind of two questions. I'll try not to trail off here, but I guess my first question is how do you push production to replace for the moment, maybe, and that goes into the second question I have, but how do you push production to still get that feeling? For me, live music I like is dangerous. You know, I was very fortunate to work with Daughters as their agent on the last record, and that was a band I saw growing up. These Arms Are Snakes, seeing the Jesus Lizard come back, like there's this dangerous element, or even Vane at the Echo here on their headline show. Like there's just something about that, and being in a room, you know, I feel like that's the biggest hurdle to overcome. So I guess first part of the question is like, when you talk about pushing those production things, is that kind of what you're talking about, or can you expand on my rant a little bit there?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you that like live music for me, it's a combination of the band and the audience and how they interact with one another. And like if you watch most of the video, like pretty much every video on Hate 56, I am always on the stage. I'm filming stage right or stage left, because that for me is the perspective where it's the interface where the band and the audience meet, and you get that beautiful interaction of just like people up front either like screaming the lyrics or moshing or crying because the music is resonating with them. Like for me, obviously that's like literally where the action is, but it defines that like literally the actual interface where like the lines are blurred between who's the performer and who's like the observer. Because again, at a hardcore show, you have people jumping on stage, and not that they are part of the act, but they are at that point, once they cross over that barrier onto the stage, they're part of that moment, and it's just a beautiful like interaction of everything going on. So obviously a live stream is not going to replicate that. So, you know, one of the things that I'm making a concerted effort to do when I do these streams is like on film, you know, I'll typically have multiple cameras. One is maybe on a motorized dolly that's like moving around. One might be like a wide shot that just shows the room. And then the main angle is just me, you know, I have my camera on a gimbal that just stabilizes the camera, and I'm like up in the band's face and weaving in and out between them, and like trying to capture the perspective that I have of like, you know, I'm filming the vocalist and I'm running over to film the guitarist, then I'm cutting over to the drummer while he's doing a crazy fill, and then I'm running back out to get back in the face of the vocalist. And I'm trying to use just the way I'm filming that from that perspective to bring the viewer into the room. And so I see a lot of live streams where it's just like a bunch of cameras that are fixed on tripods, and that's fine. That gives you a sense of, you know, sitting in the room. But again, the way that I think about hardcore shows and aggressive music is it's a chaotic thing. It's a very dangerous thing. And in my normal videos that's outside of live streams, I'm trying to constantly bring the viewer into my shoes, through my lens. So that's why I'm always filming from the stage side. That's like the side of the stage. That's why like my videos are a little chaotic in terms of like the motion, because I'm dodging stage divers, I'm getting hit, and I'm gonna have to move my camera out of the way. And I feel like for me, the reason that, you know, what makes a Hate 56 video what it is the sort of controlled chaos in terms of how I film the sets. Some people don't like it. Some people get like motion sickness from my videos, but again, like that's literally my perspective. I'm literally getting punched while I'm filming this breakdown, and you're seeing that happen. And so I want the video to capture that. So when I'm talking about the production value of these live streams, it's again trying to keep that in mind. What can I do in terms of my decisions with filming this to bring the viewer into my shoes and to get them to feel like they're in the room with me? And the other part of it is like the actual production value, like using better cameras or streaming it at a better bit rate that, you know, so people can like watch it at a higher quality, or, you know, I'm making sure that I'm hiring like a sound engineer to record and mix the audio live that is then getting synced to the video before we push it out to the stream. So just I'm trying to really push the envelope in that regard as well. Just not, you know, both in terms of creatively, you know, what are different ways that we can capture this, but also technically what other tools can we use to make this better? You know, so for example, Thursday did a live stream. I didn't produce it, but they had a crew producing it. I don't know if it was live or pre-recorded, but they had like a 360 camera on them, and so that was a cool perspective that I haven't seen done in a stream before. So stuff like that is really cool to me. Like, what other ways can bands bring the audience in? And I think Under Oath did like a series, a three night series recently,
Yeah,
and
I believe they did 3 albums, or like the 3.
they did 3 albums, yeah. And they obviously they didn't set up on a stage and play. They set up in like a room like that was, I guess, 360 kind of thing, where they had like, you know, I think the band was set up in a circle, which I've done, but they had like cameras moving around them in this room. So I think what we're going to see now is, you know, bands are going to be trying to develop ways of, you know, not just like what other rooms can we play in, but what other, you know, how can we set up our arrangement differently that sets this apart from anything else that's been done. So I really feel like right now we're at the beginning stages of bands really experimenting with different ways of just orienting themselves or trying to bring the viewer into that space with them while they perform.
And that brings me to the second question, or the second part of the question, is live stream going to be the replacement? You know, something Jamie and I talked about that we had heard older people in the business talk about a couple of years ago is like, oh, you know, what do we do when like people can just stream from their homes? Obviously, Coachella is streamable, Couchella, whatever. A lot of major festivals are doing that. You are seeing special live streams. My fiance, I mean, this isn't the music world, but my fiance bought tickets to the Jesus and Mero like live book reading for California, and we did that, and it was like this special interaction. But I felt like there's still a difference between seeing that live and being in the room and just having it up on the screen. One's convenient, but I think it breaks down to, would I rather pay the money, buy the vinyl, sit there with the record, you know, flip it, have that interaction, or just stream it on Spotify or wherever? So I think there's, as much as there's a push from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing as really a way to make up lost funding for venues and promoters across the board to doing these live streams, and for bands to have, like you said, that moment where we have something coming out, we need some sort of material and creative content. Is this the new normal, or is this just a temporary thing? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I personally don't want, nor do I think a video can replace the actual feeling of being in a room and seeing a performance. Mm-hmm. For me, I think being in the room and literally hearing and feeling the acoustic vibrations like hit me, that is something that you can't replicate through a video. And again, like, that's not something I ever want to I never want the video to, you know, replace someone going to a show. And that's actually, like, I've actually received a lot of criticism over the years from people being like, I wish you didn't film our show because people don't come to our shows anymore because you film them. And I push back on that because I really feel like before COVID, the videos in general really inspired people to go see the band live because they want to like be a part of something. They actually want to like say, oh, I was there. I was in that room. Like, I really think videos have encouraged people to go attend shows more. Obviously, I think videos really help people who are, you know, with disabilities, or they're not able to physically attend shows. That helps them at least be there. It bridges that gap. I don't think streams will replace them completely when we go back to normal. If we go back to normal, I think what we'll see is, I'm sure some bands and venues will, and I think we're seeing venues now starting to outfit their rooms with live stream equipment. And I think that when we get to that point of shows happening again, I think venues will tell bands like, we're selling, or the show's sold out, or we're at this capacity. Hey, we can also provide a live stream as well with this percentage. The house will take this percentage, the rest that you keep. So I think that we're going to see live streams, at least a part of a show's package that some venues offer. I do think for some bands they will offer like a special stream, like maybe they have like a special occasion that they want to live stream, or they can't do a world tour, so maybe they'll do like a live stream of a anniversary record or what have you. So I think we're going to see a combination of like special one-off things being live streamed just because the circumstance of the band can't tour, or they just want to reach a lot larger audience for that specific event. But we're also going to see like venues just offering a live stream package on top of like tickets to the show. And part of me, like, I really feel like even if tomorrow the states open up and say, everyone can go back to full capacity, I really feel like it's going to be a process. I feel like everyone's going to have a different level, like a threshold of when they're comfortable with coming back to a show. So not everyone's going to come back on the first day. It's going to be like a cascading thing where it's a rolling thing where it's going to take several months before everyone feels, or even years before people feel fully comfortable. So we're gonna see that it's gonna be a long process, in my opinion, my estimation, that people are gonna really ease back into going to these events full capacity. So there's probably gonna be in order for bands to make the guarantee or venues to like keep the lights on, they're probably gonna have to offer, like, hey, we're not selling out the show. We're gonna have to offer some live stream package.
Mhm.
And I think that live stream package is probably going to phase out as maybe not, as shows get
I don't
more
know,
and
because
more.
imagine the scenario of like you can't make it to a show because you're like not feeling well or something. You know what I mean? Like
That's true,
imagine
yeah.
if you could easily just still be able to experience it. But like, so I feel like it could. I really like what you're saying because it feels like maybe there's something positive in this. Is like when we can go back, whether the fate, how it's phased. It's like it'll be great for people who don't feel comfortable going back right away, but it could have a lasting positive impression. It could work, and I think at the same time from a marketing perspective, like what you were saying, it's like, I mean, I have worked most of the times when I'm picking up a new project to work on and working with somebody new, I would almost always try to find live footage because that's the kind of music I work with, right? So it's like, if I'm going to be working with like a chaotic, rowdy punk band, I have to see the proof. Like I have to know that it exists.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And it's like a huge part of the selling point. There was a band I worked with earlier this year who like the entire hook of them was that the guitarist does a cartwheel mid-set, and like with his guitar on and shit, so it's like for that, it's like they got more well-known and more awareness off of their new record because of these viral videos that were kind of going around online of this kid doing these cartwheels and stuff, and like people just been like, oh my god, you have to see them, and it's like that's the kind of project where you get like hit dead in the face with this COVID thing that's like, fuck, the whole thing was the live experience with you, the whole experience, the whole marketing of it. But I think in the future, this hopefully will just teach, both, people who work in the live space, but also people who work on content creation and stuff and marketing people to think a little bit more creatively. I keep telling people that if anything, this whole experience so far for me has been like an opportunity to, like you were talking about, push boundaries, and an opportunity to challenge myself creatively. And I tell that to any band members or artists who ask. It's like, this time we're in, however long it lasts, it's going to weed out people who aren't creative. It's going to weed people out who, can't figure this out, for themselves, basically. But it leads me to a question. You talked a little bit about sort of like the production value, but like what if we're talking about a band or an artist who is, in the middle of nowhere. Let's say that they're not in a culturally kind of significant place where they can have access to videographers and venues and things like that, but they're a band and they're doing great and they're making whatever art they're making. How, let's say they only have a cell phone and, some shitty lights that they found in their parents' garage or something. Like, how would you go about, like, what would you advise somebody like that to do in a time like this when they don't have access to the same, portals that a lot of our community has, but they still are in a moment where maybe they would have gone out and done like a DIY tour and done a bunch of cool shows, but now they can't do that. What would you suggest to somebody like that who doesn't know you basically, or anyone like you?
I would say just do it. For me, like, I'm of the opinion, like, if you have an idea, just try it, run with it, see where it works, where it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, then, like, you know, backtrace and then figure out, like, okay, this part didn't work. Let me try this instead. So obviously, like, anyone who has a phone in their pocket has access to like a 4K camera. And so I think really what makes a stream enjoyable is just, like, you know, get creative with it, or just be passionate about the music that you're playing. Like Code Orange was part of that stream was so exciting because the band was in it. Like, they were playing as if they were playing in front of a packed room.
Right.
They weren't just standing. Like, they were really, you could feel the emotion.
They were sweating, I saw.
Yeah, so I really advise bands, like, even if you don't have access to best equipment, just, like, be authentic. You know, if you have an aesthetic, make sure your aesthetic is captured through how you're filming it. Like, you know, get creative with the locations that you film. Like, really just try to, you know, some bands are just streaming at, like, doing an Instagram live out of their practice space, and that's cool. Like, try that. But if you want to, like, play in the woods or something, like, try that too. There's so many things that you can just like, experiment with. And I think that, like, being comfortable with experimentation in general, for me as a creative person, is what allows me to, like, break through, like, a creative wall and, you know, level more, like, I hate to use the phrase level up, but, like, really, like, level up to a point that I wasn't at before. And it really, you know, I say this a lot in interviews, but what really keeps people, like creative people or anyone in general, from leveling up in life is resistance. Whether it's, like, you know, your family saying, oh, you can't do that, or, you know, peers being like, hey, you're not good enough, like, you should just stick to what you're good at. Or, you know, that could be whether you know, someone telling you that you can't become a skateboarder, or you can't learn to play guitar, whatever it is, or you can't become a manager at your job. You're going to be this cashier for the rest of your life. Like, there's always some form of resistance that's keeping you down. And what I really tell people, and what I personally embrace a lot, is identifying those points of resistance and really just, like, pushing at it and, like, really trying to break through. Because once you can break through, then you can see the, like, literally the other side, and you're able to, like, build the confidence and tell yourself, like, oh, okay, I actually broke through that. I can do this thing. I can do a kickflip on my skateboard. I can do whatever it is. And that gives you it empowers you. And I really think that creatives now should embrace that level, like, embrace that fear, like, embrace, like, what is keeping you from wanting to try that thing that you've never wanted to touch before. And, like, just try it. If you fail, who cares? Like right now, I mean, the internet in general has a less than a 2-week memory. So, like, memes come and go. Even 2 weeks seems like a lot. Like, even if
I don't
you
even know what
fail,
happened 2 weeks ago, dude. I don't even know.
yeah, like every day there's something new. Every day there's something new. So even if you fail publicly, like, yeah, it might be a little embarrassing, but people are gonna forget. But that gives you, like, even if you fail, that gives you such an important data point, because then you know, okay, like, I did these 5 steps and that 4th step failed. So next time I do this, I'm not gonna try that. I'm gonna try this other thing. And so for me, I learn so much more through failure than I do from, like, studying a textbook or, like, watching a YouTube tutorial. Like, just do it and fail. Like, you learn so much more. You get so much more feedback, like a reinforcement from that, like, negative signal than you do from just, like, all right, I'm gonna do it by the book, and I'm gonna do everything play by play, because, you know, obviously that can work, but you're never going to. There's a limit to how much you can do when you're doing it by the book. So if you're someone who's trying to, like, do it right now and you don't have the resources, just be resourceful with what you do have, whether it's your phones, and just set up a couple different phones and, like, put them in interesting orientations, or play in an environment that you think is novel or complements your band's aesthetic, and just roll with it and be authentic with it. And I think that authenticity can go a long way, because, I mean, there's like vloggers on YouTube who are, you know, they'll use high-end cinema cameras, and, you know, they put all this time and energy into, like, perfecting their videos, and they, you know, their videos do well. But then you have a vlogger, then you have like that dude who went viral on TikTok because he was on his longboard drinking the ocean spray, singing along to Fleetwood Mac, and he filmed it on his phone, and that went like multiple millions of hits.
Yeah.
And the reason that went viral is because he was authentic. Like, that was him. That's him in his moment. And he didn't need a high-end camera. He was just on his phone. So you see examples like that every day of just people's just true selves, their true, genuine, organic selves just shining through a cell phone. And that is what penetrates and what resonates with people, because people like that. People are, and especially now, people want to be inspired, and they want content to take them away from the daily doom and gloom of this news cycle that we're in. That's just like abusive news cycle that's just constantly getting worse and worse. So the moral of the story that I'm trying to convey here is just be authentic and let that convey. Like, you don't need the best equipment. The best thing that you have is yourself and your passion, and let that be the thing that is like reaching through the other side and like literally touching people on the other side. Because if you can do that, the people on the other side, they're not going to care what you filmed it on. All they're going to care about is like, damn, that person or that content that just hit me is like, it's making me feel something. And at that point, it doesn't matter what you use.
Do you think that there's a push against, like, you bring up some really good points, like take the risk, be authentic, but personally, I feel like the bigger business, it almost, like you said, like, this is the way you do it, this is where we know, like, and now we live in this sort of, I guess, social structure where it's like, it's easier to say, I want to do that, than it is to say, this is what it is. Even though this is what it is what we kind of champion over time and through history, you know, like, I feel like to a degree, Code Orange is just that, even as a band, you know, they're very unapologetic, you know, they're like, this is what it is. You think we sound hardcore? Great. You think we sound new metal? You hate us? You like us? Whatever. This is what it is. And I think, you know, to a degree, bands like that, bands like them, what do you think is the sort of wall that people don't take that advice and heed it well?
Yeah, I think people like validation. Obviously, we're in this social media era where, you know, likes and engagement is currency. That's why we're addicted to our phones. Like, we want that neurofeedback of like, oh, someone liked this thing. It's gonna like release some endorphins. It feels good. And so I think that some bands are afraid to just do what's not popular. Like you said, Code Orange is unapologetic. They have a vision in mind, and they are going for it. They don't care if they are alienating old fans, or they don't care if they're shit talk. They feed off the shit talk. Like, that is what gets them going. And so I think that, you know, we're in the digital age definitely keeps people from, you know, people want people to like them, and they don't want to do things that loses, you know, being in people's favor. And so I think that's a big part of it. So I think that if you're able to ignore the fear or embrace the negativity and, you know, use it to your favor, you're going to be able to try new things and break that rut of just doing the same monotonous thing over and over, and, you know, following the same archetype over and over again. So it's a hard thing to do. It's easier said than done. So I don't fault any band that doesn't want to like push the boundaries or do, like, some bands have a formula that works really well and like they shouldn't break it. But I think that there's some bands who are like, they're feeling the pressure, like, you know, what else can we do? We're like doing the same thing over and over again, but they might have that fear of like, well, I don't know if we go down that route, we might be considered sellouts or changing our vision or whatever it is. And they don't want to do that because of the perception. So it's tough. It's like I said, it's really easier said than done. But if you're able to like divorce yourself from needing that validation, or really like if you're able to, you know, set aside people's expectations, because again, like, your art is your art and it should be a reflection of what you want it to be. And obviously, yeah, you should factor it, like, you should be considerate of what your fans are, but at the end of the day, it's like, you have a vision, you need to be honest and true to it. And if that vision is like, hey, I want to try something new, like, we're like a metal group, but we also, some of us like hip hop, maybe we should incorporate some hip hop elements, like do it, because that's what your heart is telling you to do. But again, it's hard to go against the grain when you have, you know, management and labels and fans expecting you to deliver a certain type of thing over and over again. So I don't know. I think that right now in this time we're going, I mean, this seems to be the theme of this talk is like, if you're not going to evolve or develop in certain ways, like your band might not make it out of this, you know? You're going to have to find ways of just, you know, making the best of the situation. And that might mean having to redefine or push your limits a little bit more than you were comfortable with before.
So now is the time to swing for the fences more so than ever.
I think so. And again, like, I think that, like, I think maybe people might be a little bit more forgiving right now. I think people are going to, like, you know, if a band tries something and doesn't, and it fails, like, they're probably not going to hold it against them because, you know, I think people realize, like, bands are trying to do what they can to stay relevant or just try something new. So I don't know. I would advocate, like, yeah, now is the time to go for it. And if it doesn't work, then who cares? You know, like I said, people are going to forget. For the most part, people will forget that you failed, and, you know, by the time you try again, like, you'll more or less have a fresh, clean slate.
That's crazy. Just to kind of, I love all of this. I want to kind of change the subject a tiny bit. Something that you know, another kind of thing since all the pandemic started that I've been getting asked by bands and just people, music people in general, is about Patreon. And I feel like you have first off, you've been doing your Patreon for a good amount of time now, and you've really I don't want to say perfected, but you've really found a system that works, I think, and it funnels you to, it allows you to be able to go and, I mean, pre all this, you could travel and, like, do all this stuff, and it's, like, really, like, become a huge piece of your puzzle. So, you know, what advice do you have, or, like, how did you get it right? You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of bands right now who are leaning on services like Patreon because it's sort of what they're seeing everybody do right now, and it's really some view it like a tip jar, some view it like more content creation and access, but all of them are kind of probably in the same boat of figuring it out as they go. And I was just, you know, yours has kind of had it for a while, and I wanted to just pick your brain on it because I think we could all learn something from the way you've kind of built your community, and specifically on that platform.
Yeah, Patreon has been around for many years now, at least 6 years, maybe even 7 years. And
when did you get on there?
I joined it 2 years ago. 2 years ago in March, I launched mine, 2018. So
okay.
I thought about it a while ago, and I was like, I don't think it's ready yet. Because what Patreon works really well if you have an established community. So a lot of people will join Patreon being like, I'm just starting out, I'm gonna start Patreon, it's gonna work. But Patreon is not great if you have no community. Like, it's not ideal for, like, community building. It's really successful if you have an established community of people who know and value your work. And so a lot of bands will definitely find it, you know, certain bands will find it successful because what people really like is the feeling of being a part of something, one, and two, knowing that they are contributing to something that they value.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's worked for me because I've built this community of people who really value live recordings and the videos that I film. And so a lot of my Patreon perks are, like, just really furthering the idea of community. So my videos are all, like, I film shows and I edit them, but my release schedule, like what comes out tomorrow, that's all controlled by Patreon viewers who are voting. So I've really democratized how Hate5six runs as a platform, and I've really, like, made it this, like, integral part of being a part of the community. Like, if you want to be a part of the Hate5six community, then you have the ability to control the actual content programming and scheduling. So I've really doubled down on, like, making it known that if you are a Patreon subscriber, you're not just a viewer who's paying, like, you are actually part of the process of how content is created, produced, and released. So I do things like that. I give, like, early access to content, or I'll do, like, special bonus content. So for a lot of these live streams, I will do, like, a lot of the live streams I do are free, But to cover the cost of producing the live stream, I'll ask the band to do like an interview or a rig rundown followed by like a 1 or 2 song encore, and I put that on Patreon, and that is what like subsidizes the bulk of the cost to do the actual free live stream. But interestingly enough, like when I look at the numbers, like most of my patrons don't even watch the bonus content. Like I was looking at a bonus encore video that I posted on Patreon. It had like 30 views. Like,
Wow.
I have way more than 30 patrons, you know? And so, and I've asked patrons like, hey, you guys aren't watching this. Like, what's up with that? And the common feedback I get is, yeah, we appreciate the bonus content, but we're not here for that. We just want to support you because we know that like you're working very hard, and like, yeah, we might watch it when we have time, but like what's drawing us to support you isn't the content. It's knowing that we're supporting someone who is working so hard doing something they love. So I think that like, obviously I do have to create the content to like bring people on, but for anyone who's starting on a Patreon, again, it's about building the community and building that trust. And again, like I could have started Patreon sooner, but I think by the time I started it, I had already done Hate 56 for 10 years of my life. People knew what to expect from me in terms of like the quantity and quality that I could deliver. And I basically said like, hey, if you're willing and able to support me on Patreon, like you can actually, like you've seen for the last 10 years what I've done. If you're willing and able to support me, I can take that and take it into hyperdrive. And that's what I did. I took it to the next level. And I really like, I think that anyone who's a Patreon, like if you convey to your viewers like, hey, here's what here's what you've seen us or I've been able to do as a band or as a content creator. If you're willing to support us, like we're going to be able to do that and then some. And I think people really want to see others succeed, especially content creators that they love or artists that they love. They want to see them succeed, and they'll like chip in $2 or $5, $10, knowing that that small contribution is going to help them get to the next level. So I really tell people who are like trying to get on Patreon, like one, like really focus on already having an established community. Like you don't need thousands of people, just like get a community of people who like love your work. And then once people are aware of what you do and how you do it, like then it's going to be mature enough for you to start a Patreon and build a following of people who are going to want to convert from being just passive consumers of your content to being active supporters of the content that you're creating.
Yeah.
So do you think that like Patreon's sort of the better version of like a Kickstarter at this point? Like it's you use the word trust. Like people contribute to you because and obviously big problem with Kickstarter was people would give money to, band would go away, disappear, and they would never get any of the product. Whereas Patreon's like, hey, like I'm trusting to get this product or this culture or this art form or whatever, and I'm helping this person continue to move and continue to grow. Do you think now Patreon is kind of like the better system that we've been working towards the last decade at this point?
Yeah, I think we've been going towards this. I think what makes Patreon more successful is it's obviously a recurring giving. Like Kickstarter it's a one-time give and that's it. But I mean, Kickstarter, it obviously was one of the first things that began this idea of like tiered giving.
Mm-hmm.
Patreon works better because it's like a monthly thing where it's like, if you give this much each month, then you get access to these things or you get these recurring benefits. But I think, yeah, there's more trust on Patreon because typically on Patreon, you're supporting like an individual creator or a group of creators that you've already like care about or whose content that you value. Whereas on Kickstarter, a lot of these things are just like a faceless company who's producing a one-off product and you don't know them. So I think, yeah, Patreon is what we've been working towards because it's an extension because people love art and they love music and things like that. But they also love the people who are creating that art. That's why like people are obsessed with certain musicians or certain artists. Like people, some people just love the content or the music and they consume it and that's it. But people want to know like the people behind it. And they want to know like, okay, like, yeah, I love this band, but what are they like as people? And I think Patreon allows artists and creatives to show their more human side. And that's what people love being able to like access. So you'll see on Patreon, like some bands or artists will have like, oh, if you support me on Patreon, you'll get like some behind the scenes stuff, or I'll do like a monthly Zoom call where I can do Q&A and interact with you. And it's only for my patrons. So that's something that I try to do. I try to do like monthly like live streams where I like engage with my patrons and answer their questions or give them advice if they have technical questions about how to do a live stream. So I think that, again, Patreon allows people to break through that barrier of like, you know, consumer and content, and really like get to know the person who's creating the content that they're consuming. And that's something that a lot of like crowdsourcing campaigns aren't built around. So.
Well, yeah, Sonny, thanks for joining us and helping kick this off. We really appreciate your time. So there's something we're going to do with our guests moving forward that I emailed you about, is, we'd like you to create a playlist that when this goes up, we can share with people and kind of give a, A, B side, this be sided with this. Did you think anything of it, or do you have your 7-inch name come out?
I don't yet, but I can get that to you.
All right. Well, we will have that for you shortly.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. You're good, dude. Yeah, we're gonna film like the way we're gonna kind of set the video up is we're gonna film an intro and an outro, basically like kind of short little bites of just me and Adam. And so we'll kind of toss into the conversation, and then in the end we'll kind of pick it up, wrap it up. If there's anything you want us to like mention or promote or anything, you can email that over and we can plug your shit. And then yeah, dude, thank you so much. I feel like I wish we did this on a weekday. I feel motivated. I want to work.
Yeah,
I'm like, shit, man, I want to come up with some shit right now. Yeah, no, I appreciate it so much. I admire everything you've built, and I feel like I can learn a lot from you. I know a lot of people will benefit from learning from you. And yeah, I really appreciate the time. Just we'll keep you posted, I guess, when this is getting moving.
No, I'm super humbled by that, because like, it's weird. Like, I don't want to say like I made it, but like I was a 14-year-old kid in 2000, like filming bands. And in my head, I was like, this is before YouTube. In my head, I was like, man, I hope one day like something I film can get like someone excited about this band and they'll become a fan of them. And like for me, it's like, damn, that dream that I had when I was 14 is here. Like, people are literally discovering bands through a video that I filmed, and it's grown into this thing that I never like imagined. And so like, I tell people like, hey, if I can help you or inspire you to like go for your dream, like hit me up. I will help you do it. I will tell you like, and that's why I keep talking about like experiment, or like don't be afraid of failure. Just do it. Like, I feel like everyone owes it to themselves to do whatever it is that they love. Because like, before I launched my Patreon, I had 2 job interviews. I used to work in tech. I used to be a software developer. And like, I tell this story all the time in interviews, and like, I think people are getting tired of me talking about it, but it's true. Like, I was sitting in these tech interviews. I got job offers from both, and they were like really like 6-figure salaries. And I was sitting there and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to work in an office, and all this is doing, like, yeah, I like the work. It's interesting work, but at the end of the day, all it's doing is it's allowing me to go home and like really like, it's allowing me to buy the flight to go film this fest next weekend, or allowing me to upgrade my camera. That all it was doing was making what I really wanted to do possible. And like, I had this one interview, and like at the end of the interviewer was like, cool, I don't have any more questions, but by the way, you filmed my band back in 2007. I had no idea. And so that was the moment where I was like, you know what? This is bigger than I thought it was. Like, I really owe it to myself to just fucking try this, to make this my life.
Yeah.
And thankfully I had the community, and Patreon was a thing. And I just like, I took the leap of faith. It took a couple months for it to get stable, but like within a couple months I had stable income, and I was like, you know what? I don't have to go back to tech. Like, I can literally just do 8x6 full time. And so it's easier said than done, because like, obviously this could all collapse tomorrow and I might have to go back to working in tech. And like, I have that cushion there to work there. But like, I tell people like, hey, if you have that dream and you want to go for it, just go for it, because you don't want to be 70 years old and be like, damn, when I was 30, I really should have tried becoming a skateboarder or becoming a painter. Like, just try it. Just fucking try it. That's all I can tell you.
Yo, so that was our interview with Sunny. I loved learning more about the Patreon stuff and how he was talking about how it's, maybe not even though the company probably wants everybody to use it, right? It's probably not best if you're just starting out. It's probably better if you have a little bit of an audience. I thought that was a really cool takeaway.
But at the same time, I mean, he talks about how you can still build content as a band. I mean, there's TikTok now, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, you don't necessarily, maybe you can't monetize it at first, but if you're a band in Wichita, Kansas, or you're a band in Boise, Idaho, like you can create your own content. Anybody can do it. I mean, hell, we're doing it right now with my iPhone. It's anybody's game. So really love this to kick off this podcast. So thank you for anyone tuning into this one. We'll have another one up next week. Do the YouTube thing, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Yeah, and we will see you in a bit. Bye.
And we're good to go. Awesome. Sunny, thank you for joining us again. Hope you're doing well living in this hellscape of a country we are in right now. Every day seems to be something unfortunately new, but on a brighter side, it looks like we might actually be coming out of this and hopefully, getting into the real live sector again, based on kind of our last conversation and what we spoke about. One of the things that we noticed that you've done in the last couple of months is kind of start your own live streaming showcase thing. So we just wanted to kind of get background on why'd you start that, what band you're kind of looking into to showcase, and really because of live streaming, there were the audio trees, there were the KEXPs out there. Is this going to open up for more showcasing, more, hitting the smaller markets? Roadburn this past weekend kind of did like a virtual festival and showcased a lot of new music, a lot of fringe music for what they sort of have on their festival at times. Just, where are you going with that and into the future, into this year?
Yeah, so obviously the first live stream I did was that Code Orange one, which was like the first week of the shutdown. And I had actually done a bunch of live streams after that. I think I've done probably over a dozen now. I did them through last spring, over the summer, into now. Essentially, I'm trying to do one, maybe two a month. I'm sort of ramping up right now. These are, I was doing a mix of live streams out of a studio that Len Carmichael from Landmine Studios owns in New Jersey. So he tends to like mix the audio for me when we do these live streams. So the vast majority of them have been there, but I've also teamed up with Will Yip at Studio 4. We've done a bunch of streams out of his studio in Conshohocken. So bands like Tiger Jaw, Menzingers, things like that, Bouncing Souls, Starting Line.
Marquis Strange, no?
Marquis Strange, yeah. That was amazing.
Hey man, it's our show. I gotta plug that shit. I gotta get in there and plug that shit.
That was one of the finest moments for me this past year. I feel like I've been in a position where I've been able to actually see music live, even if it's like a private showing for myself and a few other people in the room. But yeah, that Marquis Strange set was definitely up there in the list. Yeah, so I'm actually in believe it or not, even though it seems like shows are going to be coming back sooner than later, I feel like I'm ramping up my interest in doing streams. I'm getting a lot more requests from bands. So when this first went down, I was reaching out to bands that I had shot before that already had like a substantial following, and a lot of them didn't want to do it for various reasons, and that's fine. But in the last couple of months, the vast majority of the requests that I've been getting are brand new bands, either bands who are just getting, they've only been around for a year or two, or, I just did a recording for a band that was their first show, was a video that we filmed in the studio. So I feel like what's happening now is I'm opening up the service of providing a live stream recording or like a pre-recorded thing
I do a mix of both, but I make it clear, like I do the real time live stream that's happening in real time, but I also do like a pre-recorded thing that is then aired later. But in both cases, I'm offering that service to any band that wants to do it, and that tends to be newer bands. And in my experience, what I'm finding is that these newer bands are benefiting greatly from having these streams, because they are able to essentially debut on the Hey 56 platform, which already has at this point 130,000 YouTube subscribers, 115 on Instagram. So they are noticing a huge boost in their visibility. So this one band that I filmed, they got like, in the span of 24 hours, they went from 89 subscribers on Instagram to 2,100 from that video. So I think that, the door is always going to be open for the top 40 hardcore bands that I've shot at, big shows and stuff. But I'm at this point way more excited about providing this platform for brand new bands. And so I think that even when shows come back, I'll likely continue doing this. I think that, again, there's certain bands that they're going to benefit from it. Even more established bands. Like I think of established bands could do like an anniversary, playing a record on its anniversary straight through and do that as a virtual live stream, or, in addition to doing a tour. I think that could be beneficial to them as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing, you just spoke of the social impact, the increase, something like Instagram. Do you know anyone who has had like an increase, just like their Bandcamp demo or any sort of like streaming out there as well?
I don't have access to the streaming data, so I don't know. But
I meant more feedback from the band, saying like, oh yeah, we sold a couple of records on Bandcamp.
Yeah, so I think that this band Grishka, they played their first show it was a pre-recorded set that we filmed in Baltimore. In the span of like 24 hours, that video got like 25,000 views on Instagram, which is it's a lot for my channel in 24 hours. And they were the example of the band that got 2,000 follows in like a day. So they were mentioning that they were getting people were like, oh, I can't wait for shows to come back because we want to see you play in a venue. So. Most of the bands that I've done streams for have noticed like an uptick in, like, even during the streams, they'll have like exclusive merch for sale, that during the stream we'll have a link on the video or even in the description saying like, hey, during the stream, pick up this merch, it's brand new, it's exclusive. So a lot of that stuff sells really well for those bands too. So I would love to have access to the actual streaming data for their Bandcamp, because I personally, anecdotally, it does seem like there is a uptick in downloads and listens. And I do get feedback from viewers saying like, oh, that video made me go buy the record on Bandcamp or listen to them on Spotify. So I do see that anecdotally, but I would love to work with a band who's willing to show me the before and after stats of what their Bandcamp looks like with respect to one of these streams.
Yeah.
I feel it's funny. I had a question for you, but I feel like you almost maybe answered it. But I was going to ask you, like, we're over the past, since we talked, but also over just the past year since you did that first Code Orange stream that, was the reason we reached out too. But have you seen any other examples of people that are kind of handling that live stream content creation role, especially well since the pandemic started? Like any kind of other people that you didn't work with, that you didn't film, but just something maybe you caught as a fan that you were like, damn, that was cool. Like, was there anything like that you could share with us?
Yeah, so to be clear, I make a distinction between real-time live stream and pre-recorded live stream.
Me too in my head, yeah.
I think they are two separate beasts, and a lot of people call a pre-recorded thing a live stream because they're airing it as a live stream. Yeah. I have a fundamental difference with that from just fundamentally, philosophically, because it's two different beasts. And I don't always do my live stream as well. Like if you watch some of them, like the audio go out of sync, but for me, it's like a learning process and figuring out like, okay, like this is how I troubleshoot it for next time. So I really treat it as a learning experience and trying to like perfect my craft. So I really don't see anyone else doing real-time live streams. I mean, people are doing it on their phone, on Instagram Live, but in terms of like multicam real-time live stream, I don't see that anymore. Maybe early on in the pandemic, but not so much since. One pre-recorded live stream that I really enjoyed was the Every Time I Die. They did like a telethon theme kind of thing, but I thought that was cool. They essentially took the idea of a pre-recorded or like of a set and created skits around it, or like essentially like a script around it. have it being like a telethon. I thought that was really cool, and I would love to see stuff moving more in that direction. So that was done. That was produced by hold on, I'm blanking on his name. You might need to edit this. It's
There was a skit
oh,
about it. I remember.
it's Doug Spangenberg from High Roller Studios. I talk to Doug regularly. I should not have stuttered on that. But, he's like an OG filmer. Like he was filming shows back in the day, so it was cool. I was excited to see him come back to do this thing with them, and that was really exciting to see. I'm trying to think. There were definitely a few others that were really neat. I'm trying to remember.
The 2 minutes to late night split.
Yes,
Even and
Splitsville
was incredible, and I hope he keeps, even as we go back into live music. I know he's got Nothing in Integrity coming up, but the fact that they did like limited merch, can't wait for my 7-inch to come in. No offense, I think Every Time I Die Are the Gods, but Cave In just destroyed that cover. That was incredible. More, I think that was probably my favorite thing to watch.
Yeah, that was a cool concept, and so it's stuff like that that I appreciate. It's like either a crossover or making something that's engaging to watch. Because personally, I think that virtual fests will survive. Because people hit me up saying, "Oh, should we do a virtual fest?" And personally, I don't think those do well because people don't have, like, the way I look at it is sitting in front of a screen watching a fest is a much different experience than being at a show and watching the fest.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands hit me up saying like, "Oh, can we do a live stream and play in the dark?" And I have to tell them, no, it needs to be well lit, because when you're watching a thing on the screen, if it's not well lit, you're just going to turn it off.
Yep.
And so I have to convey to people that the experience of watching a thing on a screen has a different set of requirements than actually being at a show. So I think that, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but in my opinion, like what's going to be most successful are, one-off streams of just one band doing their thing, and maybe they have like a script, or like Splitsville, there's some sort of
like a
two
creative
bands,
element,
a creative element to it. But like in terms of just an 8-hour festive band back to band, no one's going to sit through that, and I feel like the retention rate is just going to drop. Like people are not going to sit through that whole thing. So I'm interested in creating content that keeps people engaged and has like high replay value, and that's why I really focus on like a short set. Average band plays for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops, and just make that as engaging as possible with like multiple angles and like movement, or like moving around, and just trying to keep that to hold the viewer's attention as much as possible.
It's interesting that you bring up the Every Time I Die stream, because I enjoyed all the skits, but as someone that probably Every Time I Die is up there top 3 bands I've seen the most at this point, I almost felt like, oh my God, I can't wait to go back into a room, because there's that element to that band that like when you're in the room and they're just laying waste, it felt weird. That's not on their performance, that's not on what they did. So all that being said, are you hyped to get back out there? Are you hyped to be in a live setting again? Sooner or later?
I am. I do think it's a little bit rushed right now. I do think there needs to be a little bit of a cool off period still, where you risk not, making much progress. But yeah, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm excited to do it. I do think that there's going to be pushback because people are apprehensive about shows and people gathering for events, and I'm already seeing like shows being announced, people being like, "Why is this happening?" Like, so I get it, but I see both sides to it. I see the argument that it's still a little too early, but at the same time, at some point, shows need to come back, and it's starting to happen now. So people are going to have to get over the argument of like, is it too soon? So I'm still straddling that line myself, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like for the rest of this year, it's probably going to be mostly outdoor stuff that's going to be allowed. Maybe limited capacity indoor stuff, but I don't know. I think that I'm hopeful that by early 2022, we'll be able to go back to mostly capacity indoor venues, but we'll see. But I'm excited for that. I mean, I'm only averaging about 1 or 2 live streams a month, and I'm focusing on mostly right now just digitizing old tapes that people send me. So I really need to go back on that schedule of filming a lot, multiple shows a week, and building up that list of content that I can put out.
I mean, EDC is next month, full capacity. So I think we're going to get a pretty big, like, what's going to happen here with a festival like that, is in a place like Vegas, in an environment where those people are very much on top of one another, similar to
experience,
similar to any of the Danny Wimmer festivals or like a Lala or anything like that. Like, so, you know, what more can we say than please get vaccinated? Let's try to get back to some normalcy so I can head walk sooner than later.
Yeah.
I love that.
But Sunny, thank you for joining us again, and thank you again for your time.
Appreciate having me on here.
Yeah, and so that's it. We just wanted to do a quick little wrap up before the end
Cool.
here. We will definitely